Hi, everyone. I'm here with Jihad from Forefront. How's it going?
It's going well. Thank you for having me. Excited to chat.
So, we'll just get right into things. So, what is Forefront and what's your role there?
What is Forefront is a great question. So Forefront is trying to be the port of entry to Web3. So we started off primarily as a media DAO that was doing social token, like data aggregation, information aggregation, and like publication. And we've sort of branched out into the world of social token and social DAO support. So building tooling for those DAOs and being a means of onboarding new members into the community DAO space through like both education and like other programs to get them from the Forefront DAO and sort of send them off to others that are more aligned with their interests. So I think the answer to that question will be much more concise in about a month as we're going through an off-season period at the moment that is really trying to nail down like what are Forefront's core values and vision and get the community's involvement in that process. Um, right now, I think that's a pretty good explanation that encapsulates what we're up to. My role, I am a core contributor. I'm mostly involved in the Writers Guild, but also some high level DAO strategy, treasury ops, and like org design. Have been involved with Forefront since around April, right when the token dropped, and have sort of seen us through season one and beyond. So very, very excited about the future of FF.
Very cool. What are some prominent DAOs that you guys work with that maybe people will know the names of?
Yes, I mean, I think from a pure like social collaboration perspective, Forefront has pretty good relationships with most of the large community DAOs in the space, FWB, Bankless, etc. Um, but from a more like formal tooling perspective, we've started um, like relationships with Blackhand, which is a decentralized esports collective, and are starting to look to others to help them, like whether it's on the token liquidity side of things or just like general DAO advising. But yeah, I think given the mantra of like the port of entry to Web3, Forefronts has like some pretty strong relationships with a lot of the OG community DAOs, and we're trying to help bootstrap many others through the work that we're doing as well.
Nice. The reason I asked is because when you mentioned the word guild, it makes me think of my conversation with Frog Monkey from Bankless DAO.
Yes. Yeah, no, we definitely took some inspiration from FWB, Bankless, and many others on how we were structuring the DAO, and obviously decided to go like our own unique ways given our specific use cases. But I think seasons like FWB was the first to try that. Guilds, I think Bankless were the OGs there. So we're all standing on each other's shoulders as we're building the space.
Nice. Well, you guys at Forefront use Coordinape, and were you there before you used Coordinape or it came after?
I was there before we used Coordinate.
Okay. And how did you go from the transition to pre-Coordinape to Coordinape users?
Oh man, so I guess the best way to frame things is sort of to give you the story of like how season one of Forefront came to be. So after the token was launched, there was a very, very, very rough semblance of a DAO. Many wouldn't even call it a DAO. It was simply like a Discord and a token, and we were trying to find use cases for the token. Um, as time moved on, Carlos, I, and like the rest of the core team really tried to like build out exactly what um, season one of Forefront can look like, both from like an action items perspective, like here are the projects we're going to be working on, and a DAO design perspective. So here, like what those guilds are going to look like. Here's what how contributors are going to be onboarded. Here's how things are going to be voted on, et cetera, et cetera. Um, that process to go from like just having a token to really trying to build out the DAO's design took about a month and a half, 2 months. And throughout that entire process, people had an expectation of getting paid for their work, but weren't really doing so in any meaningful way. There were a few bounties that we had in place for individual tasks. For example, like we were running the Forefront Hangouts, which is like our live podcast, and I was getting paid on like an episode by episode basis for running those Hangouts. But for a lot of this like high level org design work, like there was no easy way for us to pay contributors for the work that they were doing. Um, so Coordinape seemed like an easy solution here because it allowed us to like retroactively pay contributors within the confines of like the group of core contributors who were actually working to set up the DAO design for season one. So it made a lot of sense because we had a very like definitive group of who was working on season one planning and execution. B, we had a budget in mind for like how much forefront token we wanted to allocate to this group at large. And C, the work had already been done. So I think like Coordinape is a lot like better suited for like retroactive funding, retroactive contributor rewards than it is for like proactive contributor rewards. So in that case, it made a ton of sense. We gave it a shot for season one contributors, and it was like wildly successful. Like everybody was super excited about the outcome. And since then, we've tried to do it on a consistent cadence within seasons for all of our contributors. I think we've run around about 2 epochs so far, and both have gone fantastically.
So how exactly does this work? You guys have seasons and you have guilds. What's the relationship and how does that work with the Coordinape circles?
Yeah, great question. So you can think of seasons as like time boxed periods where we have like high level priorities outlined for the DAO. And you can think of a season as a sprint in software engineering or something along those lines. Guilds are the individual teams that are working on specific subsets of those high level priorities that are outlined in seasons. So for example, the Forefront Writers Guild is responsible for all like content production that Forefront is putting out. So the newsletter, any of the essays you see us putting out, that's all coming from the Writers Guild. We have a culture guild that's focused on internal community work, and then we have a growth guild that's focused on product development and growth. Now, we also have like these high level priorities from the season. For example, we wanted to put out FF Learn, which is like our educational content library. Given that was a high level priority, and we knew that it was like very content focused, we delegated that priority to the Writers Guild. So the seasons are sort of outlining like what those high level priorities are, and then also like outline a structure for how those things are going to get done. And then the guilds are the individual teams that are doing that work.
What's the typical length of a season?
So we've only knocked out 1 season so far. That season was 3 months, and I think that's a pretty good cadence moving forward. At the moment, we're in what we're calling a quote unquote off season period. I don't necessarily know if we're going to do this after every season, but we realized after season 1, we scaled up so much that the infrastructure that we had put into place for contributor onboarding and contributor rewards and all that good stuff wasn't necessarily going to be sustainable as the DAO grew at the pace that it was growing. So we're going back to the drawing board alongside the community to sort of plan how things are going to be structured for season 2. And I think Coordinape is going to continue to be a big, if not a bigger part of what that's going to look like. But yeah, 3 months seems to be the cadence that we're sticking to.
Very cool. And I've spoken to a lot of projects about Coordinape, and it seems like a lot of them have kind of made Coordinape their own and customized it and tweaked it in certain ways. For example, I spoke to Mask Network. They said they changed the name of the gives to Maskies. Have you guys made it your own? Have you thought of anything in particular? Do you guys call them, I don't know, forefront tokens or something?
Yeah, I mean, we're big fans of like Coordinape's overall philosophy around like the way that you should be like allocating tokens to each other. So like there's no hard and fast rules, but you should be like rewarding people who individually you like saw like provide value either to yourself or to others. And I think give and like maintaining that name sort of speaks to that philosophy. So we've maintained the fact that like it's called give, but obviously each give is assigned like a certain number of forefront tokens. So like by allocating give, people know that they're also allocating forefront tokens to the people that they're sending give to. Overall though, I think our Coordinape process isn't necessarily unique, but we're definitely trying to build on more unique aspects moving forward. One idea that we received that we definitely want to try on the next Coordinape round is doing a live Coordinape round. So rather than it being an asynchronous epoch where like people over a 5-day period can hop on to Coordinape and allocate their give and leave their notes. We wanted to have like a 1.5 hour session where each person takes turns allocating their give live so that like people can hear the feedback that they're receiving and like why they're allocating their give the way that they are. Obviously there are pros and cons to that method, given like some people are already uncomfortable with how transparent Coordinape is, and thus like this only increases the transparency there. But the specific notes and communication that we see attached to the give allocation has been the most fascinating part of using Coordinape, because you begin to see like why people are allocating the way that they are and like how that impacts the DAO moving forward. So yeah, I think the live Coordinape epoch will be a an interesting experiment.
That's a really cool idea because I don't know if you know about the origins of Coordinape, but it's kind of a throwback to how it was formed. When I spoke to Zem and Zach, they talked about how it was originally kind of conceived when they were working in a startup or something, and they actually sat around a table and they allocated to each other based on the contribution that they believe the other person made. So it's kind of cool how you guys are tapping into those early origins.
Yeah, I mean, I think those early origins really speak to like the why Coordinape is so useful, right? Like I think the asynchronous nature of it definitely helps like when you're coordinating really large groups who aren't all able to hop on a call at the same time, especially given that DAOs are global and like everybody's working in different time zones. Um, but I think like harking back to those origins is going to be really powerful as DAOs continue to grow. And like if you could do um, like follow those sorts of practices on a smaller level, for example, rather than if we begin doing Coordinape rounds rather than doing them like across the entire DAO, we're doing them at like the guild level or the pod level. That can get like a lot more interesting in like high trust environments.
And when you guys allocate tokens to each other, do you guys use only Coordinape or you do a combination of Coordinape and things with set values?
So as far as peer-to-peer allocation is concerned, Coordinape is the only tool that we use. We have other tools for contributor rewards. For example, we have like various bounties where like there's a certain amount of forefront token assigned to completing a certain task. We have a base contributor allocation where if you're like an officially onboarded contributor, you get X amount of forefront token per month, simply for being a contributor and doing the work that comes with that. And then we also have project level allocations, which are similar to bounties, but like at a more macro scale. So if you're working on like a 6 month long project and you're taking the lead on that project, you'll get allocated X amount of forefront as defined in a proposal for that work. But regarding peer-to-peer allocations, Coordinape is the only tool that we found that like actually works for the community. And I think given the success that we've had and the positive experiences that we've had with it, we sort of wanted to see how we can expand the peer-to-peer allocations on the Coordinape side of things, and decrease the set like centralized allocations, um, to lean into that philosophy more.
Really cool. And what are the things you like best about Coordinape?
Oh man, I personally really like the after the epoch is over, like examining the visualization, like the graph, and seeing how that lined up with my experiences throughout the season. So, for example, like in our most recent Coordinape graph, you could very clearly see like who the guild leads are, just given the fact that like the guild leads are receiving and sending coordinate or sending give more to members of their guild than they are to members of other guilds. But then you could also begin to see like who are the star players within each of these guilds that like whether they came mid-season or at the beginning of the season or whatever it may be. And from a core contributor perspective, that leads us to think like, hey, we should find ways to like give this person more ownership over the projects that they're working on and more financial upside as well. So it's a really powerful tool to see like what's value transfer looks like at the DAO level, and allows you to like both validate your existing assumptions, but then also like recalibrate how you're thinking about the DAO at large and make those changes based off of those results.
Do your guild leads get more gives than other people, or does everyone have an equal number?
Everybody has an equal number, but just given like the guild leads, like the number of hours or the amount of work that they're doing on a day-to-day basis and the number of people that they're exposed to within the DAO, we've noticed that the guild leads do just inherently receive more give from others. That said, though, like everybody's allocated 100 give to allocate throughout the epoch.
Any funny Coordinape stories come to mind?
I funny is not the word that I would think of. I mean, there's definitely some very interesting insights that I've gleaned from using Coordinape. There's some like really like wholesome and meaningful comments that I've received, like from a Coordinape pool, from contributors that I worked with on a regular basis, and others that I received from contributors who I like maybe only had one interaction with. That interaction ended up being like a very positive and meaningful experience for them within the DAO. So not so much funny experiences, but a lot of like positive and wholesome ones that I want to continue to build on moving forward.
Really cool. I guess that's a cool feature that people can give you gives and they can also send a message with some comments along with it. So
Yeah, I think the comments are definitely underutilized. One thing that we might actually require moving forward, is like leaving comments with give. We'll see how that works out and whether that has any like unforeseen negative consequences. But I think overall, like leaving comments not only adds more context to the social graph, but also it's just like a really wholesome experience for the individuals who are receiving those comments.
Definitely. And also when you leave a comment, right, it's proof that you actually took some thought into your allocations and you actually reviewed the work that the person did and so on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, would you recommend Coordinape to other DAOs and why?
1,000,000%. I recommend Coordinape to virtually every DAO, especially those who are just starting off. I think like there's definitely a need a lot of times for like different methods of allocation to be implemented, depending on like the DAO, its goals, and its structure. But Coordinape as like a contributor rewards MVP structure ends up working really well because inevitably there's going to be like some retroactive rewards that you want to provide to members of the DAO, particularly when like work was done prior to the launch of a token. But second of all, though, like knowing that there are rewards on the horizon and like not having to worry about like setting up comp structures at the beginning of a DAO's like journey just makes it infinitely easier for people to focus on building and focus on getting work done. And then like knowing that there's going to be like an effective and simple means of like rewarding contributors with Coordinape down the line. So I've recommended Coordinape to literally every DAO that's just getting started that I've ever been a part of. And I have yet to see like a negative response to using it for sure.
So you would call yourself a Coordinape evangelist.
I am a Coordinape evangelist 110%.
Have you converted anyone?
Oh yeah, I think there've been a couple of DAOs that I've been a part of. DAO Masters is one where I was like a huge Coordinape advocate towards the beginning of the DAO's birth. And at the end of the first season, they ended up using Coordinape to allocate funds to all of their contributors, and people seem to really enjoy it. And I've seen that happen in a couple of like freshly started DAOs now. And additionally, though, even like more experienced and more like established DAOs have begun to use Coordinape in like very specific use cases. And I think everybody is going to use it for their own needs. And like as DAOs grow, they will realize like when they should be or versus shouldn't be using Coordinape. Some DAOs will realize that they should always be using Coordinape, and other DAOs, like depending on their needs, might use it in like very specific circumstances. But I've yet to find a DAO that like at least in some situations should not be using Coordinape. So that's a very telling sign for the Coordinape team and the ecosystem moving forward.
Well, last question. Do you know about Coordinape version 2?
I do not. I would love to learn more though.
So, I mean, it's better if Zach or Zem or anyone else from the team speaks on it. But the short story is that they're decentralizing and they're going to be completely on chain. They're coming up with some new features and maybe a token. I don't know.
Ooh, okay. That sounds very exciting. Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to Zach at length, and I'm a big fan of whatever the Coordinape team is up to. So I'm sure they will make incredible decisions for the product moving forward. And I genuinely believe that like Coordinape is an ecosystem wide public good that's we will continue to depend on as the space grows.
I don't know when the last time you guys did a Coordinape circle was, but if you start one, you're going to see now that there's one part of version 2 implemented now. You can now, every single time you have an APOC going, there's actually a Coordinape member in there, so you can allocate to Coordinape themselves. That's kind of a donation to them, which is really cool.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that will definitely get some use from me for sure.
So yeah, so every DAO now has the chance to donate to the Coordinape team, which is really awesome. So we can give back for them giving us this product, which has essentially been free, which is really crazy.
Yeah, cool stuff. That's so exciting.
Nice. Well, that's pretty much it. So thanks for coming on.
Appreciate you. Yeah, no, super excited about the future of Coordinape and appreciate you putting this conversation together. And yeah, hopefully we'll talk soon.